So we're going to be covering the Advent of Cyber 2022. Now, this is 24 days of beginner-friendly security exercises to include some topics like red teaming, blue teaming, web applications, and IoT hacking. Now, if you were to complete any of these questions before December 28th, you're eligible to win some of these awesome prizes. If you are watching this video after the 20th of December, you can go ahead and head to this URL. I'll post it in the description below, and you can still attempt some of these CTF challenges. So task number 1 is complete. All you had to do was join the room. For task 2, read this short tutorial and these rules on what you have to oblige to, and just go ahead and mark that completed. Task 3 is basically asking you to go ahead and follow all of the TryHackMe social media pages. We can go ahead and mark all of those complete. Task 4 is just another one you can go ahead and mark complete. And then task 5 gives you a short story on the advent of cyber. You can go ahead and browse this and read it yourself. I'm just going to go ahead and mark this complete so we can get started on day 1. For the day 1 challenge, we can see we'll be discussing frameworks. Now, in this description, it says that frameworks are basically defined by policies and procedures organizations should follow to establish and manage security controls. Now, frameworks are basically your blueprints to manage risk and reduce vulnerabilities overall. Now, it then goes into some commonly used frameworks. So for the first one, it is NIST Cybersecurity Framework. You may have heard the term NIST compliance before, which focuses on the National Institute of Standards and Technology's best practices and security standards. For this one, again, it's a framework to manage and reduce cybersecurity risk with the focus of these 5 functionalities of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So the next 2 we'll focus on are the MITRE ATT&CK framework and the cyber kill chain. Now, both of these focus on the adversary's perspective of understanding their TTPs, their tactics, techniques, and procedures to enhance not only your own security team's visibility, but kind of understand what the adversary is trying to attempt to perform. For this specific scenario, we'll be focusing on the unified kill chain. Now, the unified kill chain is broken up into 18 phases of attack based off of those TTPs. These are then broken out into 3 different cycles. You're in, through, and out. Now, looking at in, this is asking yourself, how does the attacker gain access to the system or networked environment? Now, these are performed either through reconnaissance, hosting their own infrastructure, delivery of the payload either through social engineering means or exploitation vectors taking advantage of newer CVEs or 0 days or whatever end day kind of thing. Now, through is how are they gaining more access in your network or different privilege levels? How are they pivoting, network discovery, all that other stuff. And out, it all comes down to what collection are they doing and how are they exfiltrating that data. Now that we covered some of the information they provided on frameworks, let's go ahead and hop into the questions and finish out day 1. So let's go ahead and get started. For the first one, research is part of my ask. Finding clues in public sources. This would be reconnaissance. The next one, simple documents I turn into malware. That would be weaponization. A pizza parcel or payload. All have me in action, that is delivery. And then a con in the name of the game, tricking you into believing a false identity, social engineering. Weaknesses are my go-to resources. Through them, I make my presence felt. That'll be exploitation. I am set up to let you back into the network after you leave. That would be persistence. Deletion of evidence is part of my process. That's defense evasion. And then communicate with compromise goes through me, and that is your C2. And let's head to puzzle 2. For the first one, I am an anchor that lets you go on an adventure and explore. That is pivoting. With me, you can locate new information to expand the attack. That is discovery. Once upon, I became a king. That is, where is it? Privilege escalation. My payloads are triggered to infect all they come in contact with. Execution. Passwords I collect are the keys to the mainframe, credential access, and then side to side, machine to machine, we hop, and that is lateral movement. Now for puzzle 3, in your vault I am in, that is access. Like a dragon, I gather all valuable loot, that is collection. I export gathered treasures, exfiltration. With me, your reputation goes tumbling down, impact. And the last one, goals set, goals attained, objectives. Sweet. Now then we can use this information to answer these questions. Who is the adversary that attacked Santa's network this year? That is the Bandit Yeti. Probably no exclamation point. And then our flag and complete. And that's day 1 done. So for day 2, we have log analysis. Now, you can read through the learning objectives and understand what exactly log files are and how they're useful. But we're just going to quickly just scroll through some of this. For Windows, in order to view your log files, you're going to use Event Viewer, and you can see the different categories, application, security, setup, and system. For Linux, they're stored in var log, and you generally include authentication level logs, package management, syslog, kernel level logs, etc. One good thing to pause on are your seams. Now, this is a pretty dope software solution to where your organization has multiple things, devices, applications that generate log files, and the ability to integrate a seam into your organization is pretty imperative. It's a lot of legwork up front, but having a centralized location of logs makes everything a lot easier. And now we're going to get into grep. So this is a pretty dope command to get comfortable with. We're basically going to use it in this scenario in order to parse our log files for certain characteristics or strings in order to find that information more quickly rather than opening up the text file and manually reading through it. It'll make everything a lot quicker and smoother. Some options or flags that you might want to know are TAC I, which makes things case insensitive for your searches, and then TAC R to recursively search through your directory. And let's get into the practical and answer some of these questions and knock out day 2. Okay, sweet. So first we're going to SSH into our machine. With the password TryHackMe. So we can knock out this first one as we're currently connected to the deployed machine. So for the first one, use the ls command to list the files present in the current directory, how many log files are present. So we have 2. Boom. The next one, we're looking for logs captured by the web server. Now here, again, we only have our SSHD, which is your SSH daemon logs, and your web server log, which, again, web server to web server, pretty straightforward. Okay, next we can begin to investigate the log file, so we can just mark this one as completed. So next, on what day was Santa's naughty and nice list stolen? Let's go ahead and see how large our web server log is. 19 megs. Let's cat the web server and then tail the last 5 lines. So we see that these logs were generated on the 18th of November. So we can go ahead and do cal November 2022 and see that the 18th was a Friday. So let's go ahead and type in Friday here. And there you go. What was the IP address of the attacker? We can go ahead and just throw this one in here. What is the name of the important list that the attacker stole from Santa? So let's go ahead and first clear our screen before we begin. So for this question, there are 2 keywords that we can search for. So first we'll cat our web server log and then grep for list. And we see quite a bit here. Then we can also try and narrow it down further by typing in grep tech I and Santa and see we only get 1 result. we can go ahead and try Santa's list.txt, and it's correct. Now we have to find the flag in our log files. So for that, we can just do grep tac rni thm and then curly bracket and send it. And our flag is thm stolen Santa list. And there you go. Day 2 is done. So for day 3, we're going to be covering OSINT, which is your open source intelligence. Here, we're going to be reviewing these learning objectives. Again, just running through them. First is Google dorking. Now, Google dorking is basically using advanced search syntax in order to find stuff that isn't normally displayed using regular search terms. Another good resource for this is ExploitDB's Google hacking database. It's pretty dope. You guys should check it out when you have some free time. Next up, we have the whois lookup, which basically finds the registrar. Most of the time, the other information isn't publicly accessible, so it's a hit or miss with some of it. And then we have robots.txt. This basically tells your search crawlers what they can and cannot index on that page. So for example, with this image in google.com/robots.txt, they're not allowed to index wax search or SCCH groups, index.html, etc., but they are allowed to do search about. This is pretty useful when enumerating web applications because you don't have to do any directory brute force. Sometimes people don't want sensitive locations or sensitive files to be indexed by Google or Bing, so they'll put them in this document and you're able to find those unreferenced file locations here. With a lot of database breaches, sometimes that information becomes publicly available. For example, with Have I Been Pwned, you're able to look up your email address or an email address of potential clients or customers in order to find out if their information or password has been leaked. GitHub repos, you're able to look for sensitive files or tokens. It's pretty straightforward. But let's get into the questions and knock out day 3. So for the first one, what is the name of the registrar for the domain Santa Gift Shop? So we can go to our command line, do a whois, and look up Santa Gift Shop. Scroll up to see the registrar is Namecheap Inc. Just throw that in there, probably get rid of this, and boom. Our next step is to head to GitHub and look for the source code repository. So we'll basically take one of these search terms, head over to GitHub, and go ahead and splat this in. And we'll take a look at the first one. Sweet. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. We can manually go through it, or we can actually pull down the repository. Just for time's sake, we'll just run through this. So we're looking for the flag. We'll go to the config.php and see that the flag value is this. Next one, what is the name of the file containing passwords? Config.php, as we can see down here. Next, what is the name of the QA server associated with the website? That is QA Santa Gift Shop. What is the DB password? Santa with an @ symbol. And that completes day 3. So day 4, we're going to cover scanning. Again, read the learning objectives yourselves. We'll quickly run through some of them. Passive scanning is where you're sitting there listening to the traffic around you, either through packet capture like TCP dump or Wireshark or monitor mode in some of your Wi-Fi devices. Active scanning is you actually sending requests or queries to a specific device. They cover some scanning techniques. You have network scanning, port scanning, looking for your open, closed, or filtered ports by a firewall or for some other odd reason. And your basic vuln scanning, like using Nmap, NEC scripts, Acunetics, Nessus, etc. Then you have some tools they'll cover. Nmap, which is your Primo tool looking for ports and easy wins with the vuln scanning portion. And then Nikto, which is an older vuln scanner for web applications. And now it is covering SMB using the file manager and how to connect in. But we'll approach this a different way, and we can get into the questions now. So first we have to look for the HTTP server running on the remote host. We'll do a quick Nmap scan of the target IP and let that run real quick. Looking at our results, we can see that on port 80, it's running Apache. And then what is the name of the service running on port 22? That is SSH. And now we'll get into some Samba. So let's go ahead and use SMB client instead of the file manager like they do here. We'll do SMB client TAC L, and we'll grab a list of the current shares on the SMB server. We're gonna have to specify our username and then the password provided. Here we can see the SMB server has two interesting ones on disk. So we'll go after admins and see if our current user has permissions to connect in. And throw this password in. And we're in. So what flag can we find on this SMB? We see flag.txt. And while we're here, what is the password of the username? So we see a user list. So we'll pull that one down as well using git. We'll exit out and cat our flag first. Throw this in here. And then cat our user list. And we're looking for this one, Santa 25. And sweet, day 4 is done. So for day 5, we'll be covering brute forcing. They go over a couple different protocols that allow you remote access to a system. This is SSH, RDP for remote desktop, and VNC, which is virtual network computing. They go into different authentication methods, and then how you go about attacking a password, either through shoulder surfing, which is you visibly seeing it, password guessing, typing random stuff in, using dictionaries in order to brute force, or a traditional brute force attack where you're doing each character and trying to attempt all the different combinations. They then demonstrate a small scenario where you go after a target IP utilizing Nmap to figure out the 2 ports that are open, and then using Hydra in order to brute force the username and password. They then talk about how to connect into the VNC service after you get the password, and that brings us to our questions. So for these questions, we're going to attempt to use Hydra in order to brute force the VNC service on this IP. Traditionally, VNC is open on port 5900, so let's just hop straight into it. Hydra TAC S, specify the port 5900, and then the word list we're going to use, which is just rocku.txt. And then we'll specify the IP that we're going after and VNC as a service, and we'll go ahead and let this run. After those results come back, we can go ahead and take our password and throw it into our first response. Next, we're going to connect into the VNC client. We're going to use VNC viewer, which we'll just have to specify the IP and then the password. And here we can see that this is our flag, which is THM see your screen. Boom, day 5 is done. While we wait for this VM to start, let's go over the day 6 learning objectives for email analysis. So we'll basically cover some sort of phishing event, and they go over specific fields that could be important when analyzing an email. Continuing to scroll down, we see they show you how to open up an email or message file in Sublime, and then using email analyzer in order to extract documents or attachments from an email and including headers. They also include reputation lookup tools like VirusTotal, URL scan, Talus reputation, and then using the SHA-256 sum to upload to VirusTotal to check if it was detected anywhere else. But yeah, let's get into the questions. So first, let's go ahead and open up this file with Sublime and open this up. So the question is, what is the email address of the sender? That is from and chief.elf@santaclaus.thm. What is the return address? That is Murphy Evident. On whose behalf was the email sent? Again, going back to from, and that is the chief elf. The spam score is 3. And for this, we have to find the hidden value of the message ID field, which is this. So for this, we can quickly just open up a terminal. Echo base 64 XD. And there's our answer. AOC 2022 email analysis. Sweet. Next, we have to find the email reputation. We can just quickly scroll up and then head to this website and type in this. And we can see that it is risky. So here, risky. Next, we have to check the attachment and get the file name of the attachment. And we can see here that the file name is Division of Labor. Next, we have to grab the hash value of the attachment. So we actually have to extract it using EML analyzer. Now, I think it's TAC I and then urgent and then TAC extract all. We will then go to EML extracted documents and see that the document is here now. We'll then take the SHA-256 sum of that document and copy this. Next, we will take that hash and go over to VirusTotal. And then we'll go to behavior, and I think it's looking for the second tactic. Yeah, the second tactic, which is defense evasion. The last one is asking us go to Inquest website and what subcategory is this file. So we just go to this URL, click on here, indicator lookup, throw in our hash, and then open it up. And then here we can see that it is a macro hunter. Probably with no space. With this. Boom. And that completes day 6. So for day 7, we're going to do something a little different. We're basically just going to follow along with this CyberChef overview and perform the similar actions because it's a lot of different regex and we're just trying to grind out these Advent of Cyber days and all the tasks. But I've never used CyberChef this extensively. I've used it for a lot of like basically their magic recipe or whatever. You have it on the left side. But it's pretty sweet. This one looks like it's a fun one. Especially the whole defanging URL, which makes it basically you're wanting to make it not clickable when you send that URL to somebody else. So let's go ahead and get started while we wait for this attack machine to start up. Okay, so for our first question, what is the version? Unfortunately, the browser is kind of hiding the version, so let's just go ahead and try and inspect it. What div class is it? No, this one. And we can see it's version 949. Next, we're going to kind of minimize this and drag and drop our document into CyberChef. And now we're just gonna follow the different order of operations that this has. So first we're gonna extract strings. Then we're gonna look for actual principal characters. And once we look at some of these, we can see a lot of like random strings, some obfuscation going on over here. And then it tells us to basically change the minimum character to 256 or 258. Next, we're going to do a find and replace in order to get rid of these brackets and underscores. Let's go ahead and throw this in there. And close bracket. Here we can see that it is representing a PowerShell payload, opening up a hidden window, and then throwing a, I'm assuming base64 encoded string. Next, in order to remove this top line, we're going to do drop bytes. And then we're going to specify 124. And now we just have our base64 encoded string. And then now we're going to convert the base64. It really is pretty unbearable, this little split screen with CyberChef. Nope, that's 2. Let's do from base64. Boom. We can see some commandlets: set tac variable, set tac item. And then now we're going to further use decode text. And then change this to 16 little Indian. We're going to do another find and replace and clean this up some more. If you look through, we can see some URLs and something else we're going to have to find and replace, which is this B2H with an HTTP. So again, dropping one of these down here. And then replacing B2H underscore with HTTP. Next, we're going to have to extract all of our URLs. And then we can see everything is separated by an @ so we're going to have to implement a split. and then defang our URLs. And boom, that should be it. Knock out these questions. So we did approximately 10 recipes in order to get those URLs. What was a suspicious file name? That would be mysterygif.exe. Mysterygif.exe. And then what is the last defanged URL for the bandit? Be this one, a CDN, which is a content delivery network. What is the ticket? And here is our last flag. And day 7 is complete. Pretty sweet. That one was a rough one. I haven't used CyberChef this extensively before, so that was pretty sweet. So for day 8, we're going to be covering smart contracts. Now, this is a very small niche in cybersecurity, smart contract auditing. I'll let you review some of the learning objectives and review what exactly the blockchain is and an introduction to smart contracts. One thing I wanted to cover was the re-entrancy attack really quickly. There's a couple different scenarios you can use to break this down, but simply imagine you utilizing an email client and you start drafting an email. You're able to then save that as a draft, send another email, and then come back to that at a later point. Another situation where it could potentially be more malicious is when you have an online banking system and you initiate a transfer. Now, the banking system in itself will only check to see if you have the right balance at the initial fund transfer. If there were no other checks in place by the banking system, for example, if an attacker had 2 ETH in their account, they want to request a transfer of 1 ETH from the banking system. The banking system will check like, okay, cool, you have 1 ETH in your account, or at least 1 ETH in your account. This transaction is good. An attacker could submit multiple transactions that would potentially exceed the balance of their account, depleting the treasury of whatever bank system that they're going after. So after that brief description, let's just hop straight into the application. Now, we have to utilize the online IDE remix. So let me go ahead and set that up. Okay, so we have our remix in our preferred browser open. We can mark this as complete. Next, you're going to want to open file. And after you downloaded that zip and extracted it, you're going to open up these 2 smart contracts. And you can see them pop up down here. First, we'll look at attack.sol. And then we'll hop over to the compiler, change this to at least 8.10, and then compile it. You can ignore these warnings. Then we will hop back over to ether.sol and compile this as well. Next, we're going to deploy our smart contracts. So you're going to head to this last tab down here, and then make sure you have EtherStore selected and deploy this contract. After that, you're able to interact with the contract down here. So our first step, we're just going to go ahead and deposit 3 Ether utilizing this smart contract address into the EtherStore. We can see that the balance was updated to 3 ETH. Next, we're going to deploy our attack contract. We're going to just switch to a different account and then change our contract to attack, and then copy this address and then hit deploy. And we can see we can interact with it down here now. And then to initiate the attack, we're just going to change this value to 1 and then press attack. And then we can see down here in the console that it's pending. And there's our flag. So we'll just go ahead and throw this in here. And that is day 8 complete. So for day 9, we'll be covering pivoting. Now read through these notes and learning objectives. They'll be covering some Docker containers and what exactly Metasploit is, and utilizing Meterpreter within Metasploit in order to pivot utilizing the route command. They also discuss SOX proxies and various other things, and then give you kind of a walkthrough on what we're going to be covering up ahead. So for our first question, deploy the attached VM and wait a few minutes. What ports are open? We're going to go ahead and take this IP address and do a quick Nmap scan and let that run to figure out what ports exactly are open. Okay, we got our initial Nmap scan back. We can see that port 80 is open. What framework is the web application developed with? For this one, we can just do a simple curl command. And we can get the server response. So again, running Apache, and then we can see right here, this is a popular web application framework. Our next question is, what CVE is the application vulnerable to? We'll go ahead and open up Metasploit and search for our application framework. We can go ahead and use one and hit info. And here we can see that the CVE is 2021-31-29. Let's go ahead and set our host to the target IP and then set our L host to our own. At this point, we have everything we need. We'll go ahead and click run. And now that we have our shell session, we can just type in who am I and see that we exist as www data. Now we can go ahead and background our session and type in sessions, and we can see this here. In order to upgrade this session into a Meterpreter session, all we have to do is sessions TACU and 1. Boom. Let's go ahead and hop into our Meterpreter session. And it is asking us, how do we know that this was opened with a Docker container? We can just ls the root of the file system and see this file docker env. Next, it's asking us what file contains useful credentials in a web application. So we can go ahead and just cd var www, do an ls, and cat.env. And we can see app keys and some juicy stuff. So here we can just type in. Now our next objective is to see what database table contains useful credentials. Now, in this environment file, we can see that our database host is web service database. So we can go ahead and type in resolve and this web service database and see that the IP is the following. Now you're going to take that IP and add it as a route. Next, we're going to try and dump the table looking for Postgres and using this one. So we're going to set our host to our target IP and then hit run. Now looking at these results, we can see the table name users containing passwords. So we can go ahead and use this as our answer. Our next objective is to figure out what Santa's password is. So we're going to just search Postgres SQL and utilize this module in order to dump the users table. So from here, we'll set our host to our target IP. And then we're going to want to set the database to Postgres. And then set SQL to select all from users and then run. And there's Santa's password. We actually have to backtrack a little by adding in this route because it was using a Docker environment file. This is because Docker chooses a hard-coded IP to represent the host system. And now we're going to use a SOCKS proxy. So here we're going to set our serve port to 9050 and then our serve host to 127.0.0.1 and then hit run. Now that we have our proxy chain set up, we can go ahead and do proxy chains, TAC-Q, and map. Let's specify the first 100 and do our target IP and let this run. Getting back our results, we can see that 22 and 80 are open. Our last objective is to find the root flag on this host machine. So we're just going to use proxy chains and SSH using the Santa user on the 172.17.0.1 and enter in the password we found. Here we can just do an ls and cat our flag, and that completes day 9. Sweet, so for day 10, we're gonna hack a game. Now, I'll let you read through the learning objectives. I'm pretty sure this is a new category this year. I haven't seen this before. But basically, we're gonna be reading the random access memory, the RAM, and trying to figure out certain attributes or strings in order to proceed through the game. We'll be utilizing this plugin in order to access the WASM. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started with some of these questions. So let's go ahead and set up Cetus first. We'll just inspect elements and then head over here and click this tab. Now we will begin with the game. So our first flag is to start with talking to this guard. We'll just quickly go through the dialogue as we want to get to the challenge. And we're supposed to guess a number between 1 and a ridiculously high amount. We'll guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever. And this was the actual number. So we are then going to take this value and look for where this is stored in memory in order to bookmark it and then use this memory address at a later point. So if we were to then click space again and then go to our bookmarks, we can see that this integer value has changed, or this hexadecimal value has changed from before. So now we can take this value and then head to any hexadecimal to decimal converter and convert, and we can see that the number is going to be this one. So when we go back to our challenge, and when we get to the point of the dialogue where we have to inject a number, whoops, let me copy this, just throw it up here for now, and then type in 661111398, and we got it, and we're past the door and we can move on. Okay, finally out of there. Let's move on. And clicking through the dialogue, you know what we forgot? Our flag. And there's our value. Gonna have to type this one out. THM and then 5 star flag. Hopefully that's right. Boom. Okay, so for the next objective, we have to find the Yeti flag. So we'll go ahead over here and we can see these snowballs. And every time that we're hit with a snowball, our health bar depletes. So we have to figure out basically how to get across this bridge by giving us a large amount of HP or infinite health. To do this, you're going to go to search and then clear out the value, make sure the comparison operator is less than, and just hit search. We'll see how many results come back, and then we'll go into a snowball, lose some health, and then hit search again and see our results have lowered. We'll then go back in, lose some health, and search again, hopefully narrowing down our address. We can potentially see that this one is it, so we'll go ahead and bookmark it. At this point, we can just go over to bookmarks, look at the memory address, change the value to a large number, and then just walk into the snowballs. And we can see that we have infinite health, reaching the end. Here we'll just hit space and then grab our flag eventually. There it is. So we'll do THM Yeti flag. And that concludes day 10. So it looks like day 11 is memory forensics. Let's just hop straight into it. It looks like they give you a lot of material if you do not understand what memory forensics is. And we'll be using volatility in order to analyze a memory dump. And it kind of looks like, based off of the information they provide, a Windows memory dump. They give you several different plugins that you can use in order to analyze various execution flows and where they are in the memory address, etc. For example, here you can see that the execution flow for executing mysterygift.exe. But yeah, let's just get straight into the questions once this machine pops up. So first you're gonna cd into volatility 3, and then you're gonna see that our memory dump file is here. At this point, you're just gonna do python 3 vol.py, specify the memory file workstation.vmem, and we're just gonna do windows.info module in order to pull that Windows version. And we get the answer back, and it is 10. What is the name of the binary that Secret Santa left? We'll just do Windows PS list. Let this thing run. Looking through the process list, a couple that stand out: python.exe on a Windows and mysterygift.exe. So we can just do that one, mysterygift.exe. And there's that one. What is the process ID, the PID of the binary? That is 2040. And now we're going to dump the contents of the binary. So we'll just up arrow and then do dump files and then our PID, which is 2040. And here you can see all of the DLLs, counting them up, the answer is 16. And that concludes day 11. So for day 12, we're going to do some malware analysis. Reading through the objectives, they'll cover various techniques to conduct static and dynamic analysis on specific malware files. Let's just hop straight into the questions. We have our VM up and running, and let's get going. So what is the architecture of the malware sample? We can just go ahead and open it up with Detect It Easy. And here you can see that it is a AMD 64, so we'll just do 64-bit. What is the packer used in the malware sample? Here we can see that is UPX. So now it is asking us what the compiler is. So we'll just go ahead and open up a terminal and do the command kappa with 2 V's and then the malware sample of mystery gift. Looking through our results, we can see that it was compiled with nim. We then have to look for how many MITRE attack techniques have been discovered. We can see one here, which is defense evasion, and then another one here, which is shared modules. So that would be 2. What is the registry key abused by the malware? For this, we're going to open up procmon, change this to process name, and then do mysterygift.exe, add and press OK. You can see that it's starting to exclude events. We'll go ahead and go to the command prompt, move mysterygift to mysterygift.exe, and then execute our application. We'll go back to procmon, and if you see this and nothing comes up, you have to go to like the Windows registry in order to registry viewer in order to see the different activity. So even with this filter, there are a couple of these operations that we can get rid of. So first we'll do open key and we'll exclude this. Then we'll do close key and exclude this as well. Next, we'll do the query value and the query key. So as you can see, there's only one path that has both operations, which is this one. We'll go ahead and copy this and throw it into, oh no, it's mystery gift. We'll go ahead and copy this that way and submit. Let's hop over to the other operation, set value, and see what exactly happened with this. We'll just copy and throw it in and see that it put a bat file into the startup programs. After this, we have to find the 2 files created by the malware. So we'll head over to the file system activity. And then here we'll look for create file and only include this operation. After that, you can see that it created a test.jpg and then our wishes.bat. So we'll do test.jpg, wishes.bat. Next, we'll go ahead and remove this filter and tag on the network activity. And here we can see the 2 domains bestfestivalcompany.thm and virus total. For the last one, we have to find the domain inside this file. So we can first unpack our executable, and then we can then do, actually, let's just exit out of this and open this up in Detected Easy, go to strings, and then type in HTTP : and we'll just copy this. And that's it. Pretty easy. So for day 13, this is packet analysis. We'll be utilizing Wireshark in order to analyze our PCAP files. Again, hopping straight into questions. If you don't understand something, read through this learning objective. The site is always going to be up. Take your time. Okay, so we opened up Wireshark. Let's open up our PCAP file. And then for the first question, let me pause this. Let me restructure this display. And that wasn't that much better. So we'll just go to statistics and protocol hierarchy in order to answer this first question. What is the percent packets value of the HTTP protocol? And we can see it is 0.3. Then says to view the conversations, navigate to the TCP section. what port number has received more than 1,000 packets? So we'll go ahead and close this out, open up statistics, go to conversations, and look at TCP. Here we can see that 3389 was the most, and this service is RDP. So now we have to filter by DNS packets and figure out the domains. So we can just go to the second one, follow the UDP stream, and see it is bestfestivalcompany.thm. The next one, we can just change the stream to number 1 and see it is cdn bandit-yeti.thm. So here we'll just do cdn bandit-yeti.thm and submit. Next, we have to filter by HTTP packets. So we'll clear this, HTTP, and it wants us to discover what the requested files were. So we can go ahead and see that the requested files were mysterygift.exe and favicon. So in alphabetical order, favicon.ico and then mysterygift, I can type, .exe. It is now asking us what is the IP address that downloaded the executable. So we have to look at the source address as it is making the GET request to the destination in order to pull those files down. So it is the source address of 10.10.29 and 186. Now it is asking us what domain is hosting the file. So we can just go to the follow HTTP stream and see that the host was cdn-bandit-yeti.thm. Go ahead and copy that and throw in our brackets. And submit. It is then asking us what the user agent value is for the one that downloaded the other file. Let's go ahead and resort through HTTP and then follow the favicon stream and see that it is a NIM client. The question is now asking us to basically find the SHA-256 value of the mystery gift exe. So we can just go to export objects, HTTP, click mystery gift, and then save as mystery gift, and we'll just save it to our desktop. We can then minimize everything, open up a terminal, and then just do SHA-256 sum desktop mystery gift. Copy and paste. Now we will head over to virustotal.com and use that hash in order to find the connected IP addresses. We will then go over to the behavior tab and then scroll down and copy the IP addresses that are just TCP, just your 80 and 443 ports. I then went over to CyberChef, threw in the defang URL recipe, and I'm going to take this output and throw it into here and click submit. And that is day 13 complete. Day 14, web applications. So web applications are some of my favorite things to test. But I'll let you read through some of the learning objectives. It looks like we're going to cover IDORs, which are your insecure direct object references. Basically, you're able to change the numerical value or other characters in order to access things that your user shouldn't be able to access. Yeah, so let's get straight into the questions, and this one should be fun. So let's go ahead and navigate to the login page. 8080. Let's specify HTTP just in case. And they've already provided cred, so we'll log in. And we're brought with our first page. So right off the bat, we can see in the URL 101.html. So let's go ahead and just change this to a 102.html and see we have elf log mcblue. Now the question is, what is the office number of elf pivot mcred? So we can just keep cycling through these in order to find our specific user's profile page. We have the elf admin and then elf pivot mcred. So here we can just throw in 104. Now, a way to automate this would be to use Burp Suite and inject on that specific parameter and just cycle through numerically and then search through the server response in order to find pivot mcred. In this case, we only had to cycle through 5 pages, which wasn't too bad. So now it's saying that images are also vulnerable. So we'll go ahead and view the images and see it's a similar construct for the URLs. Let's go ahead and go to 100 and see that the flag's there. THM, close the door. Submit and complete. Day 14 is done. So for day 15, we will be covering some secure coding practices and best practices in general. For this one, it'll be input validation and unrestricted file uploads. I have the VM started and let's just hop straight into the questions again. What is the name given to file uploads that allow threat actors to upload any files they want that is unrestricted? What is the title of the web application developed by Santa's Freelancer? That is this guy up here. For this next one, we're actually going to have to exploit the system. So let's go ahead and use the web application functionality and attempt to just upload a simple text file. And here we can see that it was uploaded and that it will be reviewed by somebody. Now, if we just hit upload, we're presented with an error with a ASP.NET Core environment. So we can assume this is a Windows box. So let's go ahead and create a MSF Venom payload. So we will do MSF Venom TAC-P Windows x64 interpreter. And we'll just do a reverse TCP, specify our L host as this guy, and then our L port as 8080, and then our file will be exe with our out file as not malicious.exe. Sweet, now I move that to my desktop. We'll open up MSF console and start our listener in order to catch that shell. So we'll do use exploit multi-handler and then set payload to Windows x64 interpreter reverse TCP, set L host as our IP. And then our L port as 8080 and run. Next, we'll go to our web page and upload that malicious executable and go back to our terminal and just wait for a shell. And sweet, there is our interpreter session. So let's go ahead and print our current working directory. Let's just drop into a shell. We'll go to cd users, dir, and we're having to go to hrelf And then we're going to the documents directory. And there is our flag. Boom. What defense technique can be implemented to ensure that specific file types can be uploaded? File extension validation. What defense technique can be used to make sure that the threat actor cannot recover their file again by simply using the file name? And that is file renaming. What defense technique can be used to make sure malicious files that can hurt elves are not uploaded? That is malware scanning. And that concludes day 15. So for day 16, we're going to be covering secure coding. And actually for this task, we're not going to be exploiting anything. We're actually going to be fixing some code. So we're going to skip through a lot of this and jump straight into the actual fixing of the different exploits. Sweet. So after logging in, we're going to run checks. So this is telling us that there's an injection in elf.php. So let's go ahead and open that up. So the website is expecting an integer value for ID. So we can fix this by just typing in int val in both queries. So what this does is take a string and tries to convert it into an integer. If no integer value is found, it will return 0. Let's go ahead and run our check. Oh, we'll save first and then run our check. And here's our first flag. So for the next one, we're going to open up searchtoys.php. So it looks like with the query, it select anything from toys where name equals get Q and description equals get Q, where Q could be anything that the user submits. So we fix this by using prepared statements, which allows you to separate the syntax of your SQL sentence from the actual parameters used on your where clause. So instead of us using MySQL query, we're going to be using MySQL prepare. And then we're going to be using a different code block in order to secure our query. For example, since we are passing 2 strings, we're going to be using SS instead of just a single one. So our final block of code will look like this. So we'll just copy this over, replace these 2 lines, hit save, and run check. And there's our second flag. Our next vulnerable page is toy.php. Again, similar to our first one, we're going to change all of these to int val for the same reason. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. And then this one. We'll go ahead and save this and run our check. And there's flag 3. Sweet. So now it looks like there's another one on login.php. Let's go ahead and open that up. And we can demonstrate this login bypass as well by opening the web page and throwing this into here, get rid of the period, and submit. So we'll go back to our code and try and fix this up. Okay, so similar to before, we're going to change this to a question mark and this to a question mark. And then we're going to add another line where Q equals, and then we'll just copy this over right there. And then we'll change this to statement, and we'll do prepare. Okay, sweet. So next we're going to add this line, but we're going to change this to username and this one to password. And then we're going to throw this next. And then we're going to do this last piece here and change this to users._rs. That should be it. So let's go ahead and run our check. And there's our last flag. Sweet. So that was day 16. I'll catch you guys on the next one after I fix this. So for day 17, we're going to be doing another secure coding challenge, and it looks like it involves regex. Not gonna lie, every time I have to do a lot of complicated regex, I got to look it up. So let's get through these answers together and knock this one out. Okay, so first we're going to open up this regex folder and then open up a terminal in here. So for our first one, usernames, how many usernames fit the syntax above? The syntax is a minimum of 6 characters, max of 12, alphanumeric, and may consist of upper and lowercase letters. So for the first one, how many usernames fit the syntax above? Usernames, alphanumeric, minimum of 6 characters, max of 12, and may consist of upper and lowercase letters. So first we're going to want to do egrep, and then start our regex expression here. So it's telling us that we need a upper and lowercase, so we'll do A to Z as well as A to Z, and alphanumeric, as well as a minimum of 6 characters and a max of 7. And then we need to include our end of line and beginning or start of line characters. And then specify our file. And there we go. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the only readable one is user 35. The next one we are filtering for are emails to fit this syntax above. So basically any character with an @ symbol and then a domain where the top level domain is .com. So for this one, we're going to do egrep and then specify any character 1 or more times, the @ symbol, any character 1 or more times, and then escape.com, and then our file, and we get our emails. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many unique domains there are? We have Gmail, AMG, Yahoo. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What is the domain of the email with a local part Lewisham44? That is amg.com. And Maximax is fedfull. This one is hotmail.com for Hussein Volt. Just copy this. Now we're moving on to URLs. So we're looking for URLs that either begin with HTTP or HTTPS, may have a www, and a top level domain should exist. Okay, so for this one, we'll do egrep and then HTTP, possibly having an S, and then we have to specify if it could have our colon whack whack, so maybe any character up to 3 times, and then possibly having www. Again, any character as many times, escaping our top level domain dot, and then any character anytime. Any character anytime. And then end of line, as well as a close, and then strings. Boom. So for this, how many URLs come from this? We'll do 16. And then how many of the URLs start with HTTPS? So we can just do grep HTTPS and then word count L. That's 7. Sweet. And that completes day 17. So for day 18, we're covering Sigma rules and threat detection. Feel free to read through this, but we're going to hop straight into the questions and knock out some of these answers. So we're going to have to first copy these over and paste them into our Sigma hunting application over here. We'll take the UUID, change this to experimental, copy this description, get rid of these. Log source, we'll take out this comment, keep it just at Windows, and then for service, we'll just do security. And then for the description, we'll get rid of this category. For detection, leave selection, and then we're going to copy the event ID and replace also the condition. Sweet. So now let's go ahead and run our Sigma rule. And there is our first flag. So now we'll look through the challenge 1 logs and look for the user account that was created. And right away we can see Bandit Yeti Mini. So for this next one, we have to look for the challenge 2 flag, and this one is software discovery. So we're going to scroll up to the indicators of compromise and kind of reflect these within our rule set. So first we'll do software discovery, a random UUID. We'll leave this one at experimental, and then we'll do finding software discovery. Get rid of this. Get rid of this comment. Product we'll keep at Windows. And then this one will change to Sysmon. And we'll do process creation for category. Next, we will specify the field. So we'll do event ID and then colon, tab over, and then 1. For image, we're going to do image ends with, we'll do reg.exe, and then we'll do command line contains, and we'll do SVC version. And then now we're going to hit run. And we get our next flag. Next, we're going to look at the logs and find the user's path. So we'll go to parent user right here and throw that in. So for challenge 3, we'll have to create another rule, and this one involves scheduled task creation. So again, we'll scroll up to look at the IOCs and again mirror these over here. So we'll do scheduled tasks 1, 2, 3. We'll leave this at experimental. We'll just get rid of this test. Get rid of the comment. Product is still Windows. And then we're still doing sysmon. And we're still doing process creation. And then now we're going to do our fields. And here we'll do event ID of 1. And then our image ends with scheduled task.exe. And then command line contains. And then we'll do an all as well. And then we'll want scheduled tasks. And we'll want a whack create. And we can go ahead and run this one as well. And there's our final flag. What was the MD5 hash associated with the challenge 3 logs? So here we can go back to view log and look at our MD5 hash. So we can just go ahead and copy this. And that is day 18 complete. Day 19 is hardware hacking. Here we'll go into what a logic analyzer is and a couple other things like what a USART is, which is the serial communication using 2 wires. And then we have SPI, which is communication protocol between microprocessors. And then we also have I2C, which is your inter-integrated circuit communication protocol. So while our machine continues to spin up, we can go ahead and answer this first one. What device can be used to probe the signals between being sent on electrical wires between devices? This is your logic analyzer. USART is faster than SPI for communication. That is nay. USART communication uses fewer wires. That is not. That is true. USART is faster than I2C for communication. That is nay. And then I2C uses more wires than SPI for communication. That is nay. SPI is faster than I2C for communication. That is, yeah. What is the maximum number of devices that can be connected on a single pair of I2C lines? That one is, I think, 1008. And for these last two, we still have to wait for our machine to build. So now that the machine finally spawned, we can go ahead and open up Logic. Now we're going to hit open a capture and go to our desktop and click Santa. Sweet, so now we can see our digital signals. the top two being digital and the bottom two being analog. So now we're going to open up the analyzer. We're going to try and read the contents of this data. So first we'll hit async serial, and then we'll do channel 1 first. We'll specify the 400 bit rate, and then no parity, least significant bit set first, non-inverted, normal, and we'll click save. Now if we click the terminal, we're able to actually read the data, and we can see some strings here: ACK, reboot, command, and 9600. Next, we're going to add another one to channel 0 with basically the same options. And then going back to the terminal tab, we can see the communication flow between the microprocessor and the ESP32 device. So now, going back to our question, what is the new baud rate that is negotiated between the microprocessor and ESP32? That is 9600. So now to get our flag, we'll edit channel 0 and change this to 9600. Hit save, and see the flag is now this. That is hardware hacking. So for day 20, we'll be covering firmware and how you go about reverse engineering them utilizing binwalk, FMK, or firmwalker. And there's a bunch of other tools and stuff we'll demonstrate. So let's hop straight into the questions. So first we're going to go to bin, and then we're going to binwalk, tac E, tac N, firmware. Okay, so we'll go out of this one and then go into bin unsigned. And then here we'll do extract firmware and then this firmware. Now we're trying to locate the phrase for the GPG keys, so we can just do grep tac IR paraphrase. And we can just go ahead and cat this whole thing out. And before we forget, we can just throw this in as one of our answers. Now we're going to import our GPG key, MK, rootfs, GPG, private. And this one is Santa at 2022. SANTA at 2022. Boom. And then now we're going to do the same thing, but for our public key. And then we're going to just list keys. So we're just going to go back out, cd bin, and then GPG firmware. And this one is SANTA at 2022. We'll do a ls and then extract that firmware. Now we'll go into FMK and then rootfs and then see our flag. There we go. Haven't learned yet. Our last one is, can you find the build number for rootfs? And that one we can just do ls tac alh grep rootfs. We can see the build number is 2631. Sweet. And that is day 20 done. So for day 21, we're going to be covering Internet of Things and eventually exploiting a vulnerable IoT device. We'll be discussing messaging protocols and middleware such as MQTT and stuff. Let's just hop straight into the questions. So for the first question, what port is Mosquito running on? We'll do a Nmap scan, all ports, and then we'll just do versioning and our IP address. And we'll go ahead and let that run. Okay, so now that we got our Nmap scan, we can see at the top here that we have 22 SSH 80 and 1883, which is our Mosquito port. Is the device init topic enumerated by Nmap? So it is not. So we're going to have to redo another scan. So let's go ahead and just clear our screen. And then now we can just do Nmap and then specify our specific port and then just do all scripts, versioning, and then our IP. And then here we can see the device in it. So this one is yes. For the versioning, we can just scroll up a little and see it's 1.69. And now we have to attain the flag from the RTSP stream. So first we're going to want to install Mosquito clients. So sudo apt install Mosquito clients. Next, we're going to want to do Mosquito stub, specify our IP address, and then device init. And here we're getting our device init. Again, we already have the device ID, but this is just another way to grab it. Our next step is to run Docker and initiate our RTSP server. So let's go ahead and run this command with sudo. So now we're going to use the command mosquito pub, specify our IP, and then our target is device, our device ID, and then command. And then we're going to do TACM and then our command, specifying your own device IP here. We'll go ahead and hit enter. So you can see our Docker container getting bombarded with RTP packets. So now we're going to attempt to view this stream by using VLC, specifying our path that we used. And we can see it's unable to open. So we're going to attempt to redo this process in the attack box and see if that's better. Okay, so round 2, let's attempt to do VLC again. RTSP 127.0.0.1 at 885.4, and the path is securiosity. Continue. And there we go. There's our flag. So we'll throw this in, THM, your camera is mine. And that is day 21 complete. So for day 22, we'll be discussing attack surface reduction. And this goes into the whole attack surface management and knowing what's publicly available on the internet and all that other stuff. So they'll go into different attack vectors like phishing emails and DOS and covering different examples of those. So we'll hop straight into the questions. It seems like there's a site for us to pull up, and let's get into it. So Bandit Yeti has identified an open SSH port on Santa's web server. This should be unnecessary ports are closed to avoid attack attempts. A document file with a malicious macro is opened by a user. Security policies are implemented to block macros on Santa's network. Some sensitive data related to Santa's server is found on a file sharing website. Sensitive data from the file sharing site is removed to avoid Bandit Yeti taking advantage. Spoof phishing emails are sent to Santa's employee. Phishing protection is enabled on Santa's email server. password brute forcing attack is attempted, strong password policies. And then last but not least, Santa's employee finds a USB flash drive in the parking lot. App lockers deploy network-wide to block execution of unknown and non-whitelisted applications. And there is our flag. Day 22 is done. So day 23, defense and death. So again, another concept that's pretty well known. For example, in web applications, you have your web application firewall, your WAF, but you're not going to solely rely on your WAF in order to protect you. You need to implement secure coding practices, you need to implement load balancing across infrastructure, etc. So let's open up this site and scroll down. Oh, it already did, to the questions. So our objective is to get inside the perimeter, locate the vault area, and get access to it without being caught. So let's see, we'll click on the guard. Hey there, what is your purpose of the visit? And we'll just say delivery. Okay, let me log your details quick. This guard did not seem to care. Click the gate to proceed. And that was pretty easy. So it looks like in this compound we have multiple offices we can visit. The workshop, the office, executive assistant, and the deer stable. Let's go ahead and choose the EA office. Here we can see that this is the only thing available. And we have Santa's vault password. So we'll just go ahead and copy this and throw it into here. Now we'll just exit out, go back, and then head over to the workshop. Nope. I guess we'll go to Santa's office and click here. Here's the vault. So we'll go ahead and throw the password and click on this. So here is our first flag. So for the next case, apparently the security is ramped up. It has additional defense layers in place, but their main focus is prevention. So let's go ahead and close this and attempt to go through. We'll do the delivery for Santa's EA again, and we can just proceed. Now we'll go back to the executive office like last time and see we have a post-it note. So we can just go ahead and copy this, throw it in here. We'll go back to the office and type in this password. And here's the vault password. So we'll throw this over here and then we'll go ahead and open the vault. And there's our last flag. Let's go ahead and begin the next case. So for this one, security is at a maximum. So we'll go ahead and click the guard, click delivery for Santa's EA again. Okay, thank you. And go through. So we'll go to the executive office, go back to here, and see that the favorite is banana offie pie. And then a reminder to Santa to change his laptop password and make it harder to guess. Everyone knows his tendency to be lazy and repetitive, so we'll make a note of that. Go into the drawer. See there's a stack of papers. And I'm not sure where this one would go. So I'll just throw it up here for now. We'll grab this ID and then head back. Actually, we'll go back to the laptop and then type in the banana offie pie. Grab the text. See that we have the second vault password. And then we'll also look in here and see that the old password is hot chocolate. Now we'll go back to Santa's office, and first we'll look on the computer. Milk and cookies are so yesterday. So we'll go ahead and hit X and try the hot chocolate password because he's lazy. Then we can just do one up and see that we unlocked it. See that we have Vault 1. And then we can go ahead and try to open this vault with the second part of the password. And then we have our flag and Santa's code. Down here. But it seems like we ran out of time. So to do that a little quicker, we'll just go through again. Click on the gate, go back to the executive office, hit this. It doesn't want me to click it. We have to go in order. Go back to the office. Go to here. Type in our password of 2. Go here. Do our Vault password. Grab the 2845. Go to compound, go over here, hit the door, 2485, and there's our last flag. So to submit some of these flags, there's this one, and then a combo of this. And sweet, that concludes day 23. So for day 24, you can just complete the survey, hit submit, and that one's complete. For task 30, they give you some of the storyline. We'll just scroll through it and then hit yeah. And there you go. So that was a complete walkthrough of the Advent of Cyber 2022. Now, if you made it this far into the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hack that YouTube algorithm for me, and I'll catch everyone on the next one. Cheers.